it is also essential to reflect on what we might be leaving behind. Are we slowly losing the stories, values, and traditions that define us as a people? Or are we simply evolving, creating new forms of identity that blend the past and the present? Today, our panelists will help us explore these questions, drawing from their own experiences and insights, and we hope this discussion will encourage you to reflect on your own cultural journeys and inspire you to find a meaningful balance between embracing the new and preserving the old. Okay, so before I give time to our panelists, I would like to introduce each of them. First, to my left, wearing our traditional haura in a assimilated form of a Western waistcoat, is Payam Rileng. He has finished MTH, Master of Theology, and he has written a book called Thingripam, which is a collection of Tangkhul folk tales and fables. And next to him is Jim Ungramyao Kasom. He is the writer of Homecoming and Cradling Memories of Our Land. And we have exciting news. This year he will be publishing a new book soon. Actually, just in 2 months, I think. Yeah, just in 2 months, to be published by Speaking Tiger, and it's called The Last Free Naga. So let's give a big round of applause. He has finished Masters in Communication, so we can say that he's communicating very well his stories and his poetry. And next we have John Churin Mayo Lui Thui Payre. She has finished Masters in Law from Delhi University, and currently she is the project director of Saki One Stop Center, which is a center that protects women from domestic violence. So let's give them a big round of applause. And I would like to welcome Pamay Rileng to give his short introduction on the topic, and then we will go on with the discussions. Thank you.
English Monday Day. Kiashi Baya, Kernaubing, Ojang Rabing, Sotnaubing, Ningshinai, Itumui, first literature, Shirui, literature, here the Saili, Razangamiwang, Mutum, Psychorally, Ningshi, Ringava, Pongshok Lay, Mokok Kamibing, Mutum, Psychorally, Ningshinai, Hangai. Arui direct Kibli Bauge, former Zanagam Pabachini, navigating cultural assimilation in Tangkhul landscape, Jihi, Natankula, Omega, Tangkhul Luiramli, Yulgade Wingishan, Manatlaga Oktwikrum, Kuchibaina, Kalataka, Hili Rinlaga Viva, Vaisale, Ache in a Ntumli, Kigra, Mopeng Room Hai Baba, E.G. Imzagamai, Tangkhul now the Tangkhul now Zangaida, Shepshi Sagamai, Tangkhul now Tangkhul now Zangaida, Korean Zagamai. Mi khang de wing shan yang ka la ga ka la ga chak thui gai la ga itu wing shan ba phai nai sa la ga za thui gai rum li chi di ma thui gai re make up ta itu na je li topic li cowboy wi maram li ka bi sangai le de cowboy wi culture ni shan ni ka chi li ha bok le ga Spanish li ha bok te Spanish li 16th century adam li shepshi America wa pam chi di razang la ga ha bok te kala hidi kyo le ga thum na Vaqueros, the Hoy, Hugo Clada, Sikuiduni Donga, Seiko Home, is there. Kala Hui culture, he, America Divalga, Itumli, 19th century Atamli Atumui, Golden Age, the Hoy, Chili, Shepshili, Paula Gaina Atumna, now Maising Laga, Sikuidon Laga, Kuan Koktars and Sang Laga, Zadaga, Atumna, Style G, Atumui, Medianitum, Tivili, Yamagara, Ituma, Pamli, Unzigaino. Shepshi to really influence, impact, Jihina, Iram Duena. Ragzida Shijinowe, Itumili Razilai, Atuming Shanji Razilai, in Ishavalongi, Kurtwat Pingling Ankeltaran. athumna any phanit khamyon dharan phanit phanau khamyon dharan athumna changreo drama shoksa ji theis de chili western cowboy bi ara hor zap da shoksa yang ren copy store ji ga ten copy store ji ga ji sing ga ka ga shok na ji de khaman chili ga ja chili ga hao chiwi ga shan chili ga hao chili ok thui rai je ina ngan khyang dharan acha la ga chin jacket suit ka sang ni ai ngla naw na ja ka pai nim ji chin jacket suit hi ka sang naw bi ng sang ji ma sam re ni je yang da chida da ok thui sa dam athum isha wa rong ni thot khar thotli athum ing shan na yu ye da chida sa try arai thum wi thotli K-pop culture ra de K-pop culture hi na tum theiser Korean upa tong theiser yang K-pop culture hi 1950s adam le Kim sister ji bing ni na athum ing shan la sa da dan sa ga hobogis de kha thil yo kha 1970s South Korea na North Korea rai sa ga chamau ji de jena South Korea ba shin na ithum ing shan ni yor shok lo go thui ra da yor zaba ning lo yor shok lo go thui ra da athum na drama sa ji de ngreu ji de ki da sa ga hopok lo ga athum hi phau ma man ji de 1990s to 2000 aina dang da hili first generation K-pop to hoy 2000 to 2010 hili second generation K-pop hoy third generation in 2010 aina ho ka ru ra shu da hili third generation K-pop to hoy ithum na yang ching ji BTS ban mak thei le da ro ko ni da thei sa yang athum na singkuma ge kya ga an sa dam de athum ing shan yor za da athum na ngi shan athum ji sa ji thei le go yor shok ji de ok thei le singkuma ge 60 to 70 million dollar samang ji de Blackpink thei sa yang tong Blackpink thei da Blackpink ya ma 24 million dollar athum na samang ji de singkuma ge ta athum ing shan athum na sa ji thei le go ok thei le yor ji no yor shok ji no ji da earn sa ji no ila tamagli second generation K-pop with second generation jin pang na ra sai da yung so ma ba hi Korean alphabet ko bidai de ana ko bi de ga ilo bidai ga la ga chi shok la ga blackboard na re yang shok bi sang jin da I ja wa ming ja ga la na na ga ja yo ji sang ai na ji da yang a ming na blackboard ri shok bi sang Korean tu ku da da aram lai sa re tem ne Korean la ra sa de Korean tu ro bi de laga shok bisang ang lanaw na cha ge je da shok bisang yang shok bisang laga tangkul I wing shan na I ge na ge ji yu ang yu no ma thai yu khra ja na ma thai I haula ram sa thai ore na la ba sa de aram du yo ge bi thai I ram du yo ma thai ari phning go hom ha na da si thai shok bi sa thai ai ma pham ne sin ne adum ge shan chim pham ne sin ne tam kui se English la any shan tam kui se khachi da rai khan na ku wen ra ge ji ang yung ge thei phai ji hangai William Betty na ung la ga hili ung bam la ga ana chung sa mi I thum dictionary la iram dui dam kui la ga khlat me chung ga sa mi ko ning sim ne jin ko ara ini ri aga ai ba ung la ga hao na ko meoli amewa da shi ne ameoli phu bya sa hi athuma rivradi phu ga bya khang ga dharan sui ga hai ming ga zai da shi ne sya sa ga mi shi ne ka William Pettigrew na ung la ga how we kokrum amewa na na vre shi hing rai chai bai shi ne gi ju mo ai na phaning la ga yu ga ning go sya sa da de du ga ne ju wai ne du na how we o ka sheng a du ba ja mishi jin na ming zai sui gai de ba shin jin da church le ba shin mishi jin ne William Pettigrew na se ha sa ba ne shi jin de ne ta hi da ana la ung la ga awi western culture awi ng shan ji I tum tang pul li ung sang bi wo tang pul how ing shan le sa chen na dai sa bo awi shan ji la ga athu ing shan ba le yang ga la ga how sab la ga chak sab la ga I tum ing shan ba phai nai sa ngai sa ga shiman mo man ai no I tum shan ni itum chela da ok thui ru right first in adam hang kai da achim topically western cowboy western culture athum ing shan jen ok thui ru right isha ba ro thot na chi chak la gai ka haw la gai ne ga la ok thui ru ra sai ji di la ro on thot K-pop culture itum athum li yang ga la ok thui ji tiêu mai ka ta ji hang kai ne ara itum wi mission or tham cái gì cái đó lấy sao đó idum lấy school lấy sao or sim lấy sao or tham cái gì long sim đó lấy sao long sim hi acha laga lui va laga ong laga ngaya song long sim da ka sai sim ak li pam rum laga mer na long pet sam gok di ping rum pit kha sai sinau pi vai sam gok di pit kha sai sam gok jin na sam gok jin yo pi vai pet ka ka thing ai na sem gui laga ji di pet kha sai long pet di pit kha sai da ta chi da ping rum sai kala chi di ngaya song athum li haula la kharjan la award la psychologically thum ming shan la tam chi thei laga sa rak sa long sim li madam ga chi thei chi mai sum li tan dak li ka big bom li awai ping na ava ba ping i thum li award war tham ga chi i thum li thang ga chi da tam chi thei rai i thum hau na ping ga khne li vre sap nature li khang chai le da le vre sap healing nai la ga nu yu lo go ok thui gra mi yu ne awan wa nai ga o atam hi ra go ra chang ra na go wa nau hi khong ai go arang ra chang ra na go awani wa na go ara mam pang lim go ara ma ha ta na go chang thì chang liam go cái chang quay ra cái chang về đấy cái chang thar hau quay đấy cái chang thiê đấy cái chang về đấy cái chi chắc quy là cái giật sai về sắp nature li người yêu là cái ít mà hau cái này là cái nó tùy là giật sai in nào vậy thì không hắn hiang tharan athum hi achai are la theirak ya rupan la matharak khiwang le jiga khor mang la ka athum lum nau sa tharan mri phokai le jiga henai le jiga ungpeu yi ji simli ungpeu yi ji jigda jamaram achai are arwan mule jigda achai are mangzal la jigda le sai acha la ka chapi msang sho moron sim sungai ga ki gam lon khui sha le sa sha le ji jim sam ek janjam sa da var aga thei gai ji de thina reu xiao mi ba ga nam khui de kwang ga ji ga mi na thei gai khui thei gai ji thina reu xiao ki ba ga nam khui de kwang idu mo hawi ngishan ning ga thar ya ru ban ning ga thar kham tha awai yu ngishan le sai hi le la ga shep shipping no ong la ga yang itum li ai a chon dang jam khra rai ne chok da ming ye da da tri ung sa ka pi gai lai de ka pi gai mai chi wai na ya isi decolonization ka chi wi colonizer being mindset है ना कभी गाय लाई तरह कर जिकता तांकुल नाव बिंग लजंग लगा इथुम जंग जंग दा colonizer being दा अथुम नि शेप चु नि ने लाई दे कभी गाय जुंग ले जी decolonize सा से आया जी आया जु मरम नि जे गाय रे इथुम नि civilization म ले ने जी ल उहां दे civilization म ले ने अथुम नि म खावला ga जी कभी जुंग ले दे मी जो नाव बिंग म रे वाइ ने जी ल कभी दे स्मी बिंग hi शिनाव बिंग वा छा दे रा गे खा atum nglaza chila ga der ko bi me de de lai de history ba sho go chung le ye da da itumui ning ni ni shep shi wi shan korea wo shan or shan dei di yang ga la ga atumui shan ni chak sa kai de ga itumui shan da pheinai sa tin ma itumui shan da sakshina ji da ji ki ba ga holam sa de ji ki ba ga khran thei ji no wi mi mun thei ji no wa mu yung ji na ga ji ma thei ji in thum li han zau we ko pli na thum mong han ngai na han we ong han bai sin athumui ngesan na itumui ngesan li hak mai phungau la khre question na thum chu keng na shep shi ngesan na koreo ngesan na itumui ngesan li tha mai hak mai phung la accident chu keng lo itumui nya long shin our comtata kuchunga itum ne education da leida kre literature war tham da leida kre itum le ka pi mi gai me yak le sa da fu na shi tyo we sa wi di bi sang ne je ka bi le re da da chan jam ne ka itum me le sa da kharjan thmorai na hang thra ngishan sa dio da itum ngishan our psycho re hi kharjan hang ra da phari sa kharjan ka the ji na thang khame ka them ma sa sai kala itum our worship war tham hi da lek sa hi shimana ra ra athumui ngishan war tham hi nei dum war tham li juwe phungaw ra khane ka ku thumali itum civilization mle sa la okthui sa la shep shi nam ra mong nang ga vre shim ra rang ga itum civilization mle sa na ya ri pan go yim le sa na jina ka thuma tha ga itum ngishan hi ka da phari shi 이tum 가다다 이tum로 요쇼글거 미빙리 와즈응석시 셰프시웅이션 고려웅이션 이tum리 락스가다 이tum이션이로 요쇼글거 요르자밥닝로 요쇼글거 아tum이션이 와즈응석시 아tum레디 와즈응석시 그다다 파리시 그치 question 살가 했는다.
Good morning. Hari payam na kanji. Jili thab introduction mali mai da pi yang. Kabra sa se era na. Like we follow up sa ba we storytelling we perspective in hangi kala English in the we wa na na sin pai sa ya. I have read this saying, somewhere. I don't know who has said this, but it says the Nagas have lived 1,000 years in a span of 100 years. And I think it sums up the cultural assimilation that has taken place over the last 100 years. We, from a headhunting culture to this modern, global village, a lot has taken place, a lot have changed, over the 100 years. And I think to sum up in one sitting here is difficult. I would start with this. My two inspirations for writing are is my father and my grandfather. So they're from two different generations. My grandfather, he's a living storybook. I didn't grow up, reading books. Rather, I grew up listening to his stories. So I would say he's a living storybook. And my father, on the other side, he got Western education. He was my first grammar teacher. And you can compare these two generations. My grandfather, he attended Meisum, he attended the long shim, which is an informal form of gathering to learn from the peer groups. So, to say that he had this oral tradition imbibed in him. It's not false. And I think, as a person who still lives in his early 90s, we can say that he still continued that legacy of oral storytelling. And my father, on the other side, who was a teacher and was also my first grammar teacher, he got the benefit of the Western education. And so I myself am a product of these two assimilation, this Western culture and at the same time our oral tradition. So, why stories? Why do we write stories? Why do we tell stories? I think maybe the third most important thing in our lives is story. I think once we have food to eat, once we have shelter, I think the third thing is story. I think it's one of the most essential thing for our human existence to not just write about it, to not just leave a legacy, but at the same time, as a form of inspiration, we tell small stories to each other every day. So storytelling is as important as the food that we eat and the shelter that we need. Two of the most common assimilations, cultural assimilations, are forced assimilation, and maybe the second one we can say slow transition. I think we have both. Maybe initially we were forced to assimilate into this culture, but slowly, in the later years, we have chosen to assimilate instead of being forced upon. I read that the initial colonizers, as we say, the first British administrations, they put a stop on a lot of stuff at the same time. Forcing different culture. One of the most powerful example of forced assimilation is we can see it in the Native Americans, where they had to live in reservations, and sadly for them it came with a huge price. And our songs have been replaced, our folk songs have been replaced by hymnals over the years, and our stories replaced with a lot of Bible stories that we grew up listening to. And I think there are both benefits and disadvantages as well, of being living in an assimilated culture like us. So Payam has talked about, why we, instead of maintaining our own culture, why we tend to, sway to other people's culture. And I would say I have written stories on, on changes, mostly on modernization and how it has impacted our society. And, not in a very dramatic way, but in small, subtle ways. And initially, when I started writing, I wrote about Shaktiman drivers. And then people have asked me, why do you write, why do you have stories of Shaktiman drivers? And another thing is the Naga national movement. One, initially I would say, when we were growing up, we would go on the stage, especially during Christmases, and when asked, what do you want to be? We would say either the Naga army or, a Shaktiman driver. That was our aim in life. And I think it doesn't come as a surprise because, Shaktiman drivers, they travel to a lot of places. They have this sense of adventure within themselves. And secondly, the Naga army, we look at them as someone who embodies freedom, someone who is brave. So those two form of inspiration, and I think it's not entirely wrong to dramatize this, but later, in the later years, my exposure to different culture has also helped me see the importance of our own culture. So before moving into that, I would also like to just briefly talk about our literary history and culture. The first poetry book in Tangku was written in the 1920 by M.K. Shirui. So we had an anthology here, edited by A.C. Klingbaum. So I think which is one of the first anthology in English. And the first poetry was written in the 1920. And the theme, the title was Yurka Kata. So it was inspired by Christian hymns, mostly written as a hymn book style, and also I think inspired by the work of Christian missionaries. In the later years, Ocha Suisa, who is a well-known MP, who is in the political arena, and also as Naga, someone who has carried this legacy of Naga struggle for freedom. So he wrote the poetry, and if we think of his life work, we would assume that he would write on the Naga heritage, right? But it was not like that. Most of the poems were of Naga, not of Naga national movement, but of rather of Christian songs, hymns, like motivational messages like that. So I think as soon as we became Christian, I think the assimilation has started there. Unknowingly we begin to write about Christian values, Christian hymns, and so to compare, these two culture, the Western culture and our own culture, I think to bring a very healthy form of discussion, and also or as a way forward, is to look at these two as, it is something that we cannot undo, right? So how do we make the most of these two cultures? How do we, without losing our own identity, how do we, carry this way forward? and how do we advance it? I think without Western education, we wouldn't be documenting our stories, we wouldn't be writing, right? But that also comes with a price, because it's very ironic, because we have lost a lot of our stories. By the time we begin to write, we know how to document. By the time, we learn to tell our own story, we have lost a lot of our stories itself. So when I write about my second book, I have titled this as Cradling Memories of My Land. And I wanted the title to be Cradling Memories, Memory of My Land. Instead of memories, Memory of My Land. Because I wanted that idea, the idea of nationhood, the memory of a nation to be one, instead of like many memories, as a shared memory. So when I think about our identity, I think about a village setup. A village represents the epitome of a Naga culture. You have your own practices, you have your own law, you have your own stories, you have your own folklores. And it's a very independent body. And even here, as we gather here, we live in town, but we're from different villages, right? As soon as we meet each other, we ask, where are you from? Which village are you from? So when in writing about this book, poetry, I wrote this about the village. So I just read out. The idea of home has been one of a utopian world. I want that idea of home to remain permanent while other things around me change. There's a sense of temporary with home. For one, I have stayed away from home for too long, and secondly, it's always changing. I want my idea of home to withstand the waves of modernization. When I write, I'm still writing from my backyard, maybe not just about my backyard. I see the world through the eyes of a village boy. By writing about home, I'm consciously or unconsciously trying to make that world last for as long as they can. So, I think there's a fine balance, and I think we have to find that balance, I'll end this by saying this. When we compare two cultures, by beginning to compare with two cultures is when we realize our own identity. So I just take an example. I used to work as a travel photographer and writer for some websites. So I used to travel to a lot of places and blog about them and write stories. Then I realized I've been to so many states in India. So I realized that this village that I call home is maybe perhaps the best village, because I'm from Sirakom, so we are known for that hate, that long chili, So everything grows, especially in Ukrul. You have this landscape, this forest areas where you can cultivate, and we have no lack of maybe water if we harvest it properly. We are blessed with a lot of nature resources that other states don't have. So by looking outside, by getting that exposure, I began to realize, how blessed we are. And I think it is true with our culture. When we look outside, we will see within, we will see more of ourselves. When we mirror with other societies, when we compare with other societies. And I think Hayam has touched upon that, our cultures are not inferior to other cultures, not inferior to other stories. So it is, I think it would be a good start to maybe learn from this assimilation, from this, from different cultures, but at the same time without losing our identity. How do we navigate, how do we navigate this wave, this fusion, without losing our own, without dissolving our own, without being absorbed into the bigger, the more popular culture. So I would end this here.
Good morning. Yeah, I was asked to take 10 minutes, so I'll try to make it shorter. Thank you, moderator and the organizers. It's very nice to be standing here and then sharing ideas with a lot of younger crowd. When I was growing up, it was a very conventional Thai. You look like a white person. Something we see everything in Western as something very good, and growing up in a very, how do we put it, colonial hangover. It was still very strong when I was a child, and now unfortunately it is slowly shifting to, as mentioned, about culture. Before I go on to what I write, let me admit right now here that I don't identify myself as a writer. I'm still so far away from the stages Payam and Jim have reached. But still, like, thank you for identifying me as one. Yeah, so I believe today's session is also a continuation from what was taken up yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it here, but still, after a few things that I've discussed with those who were here yesterday, like, I think I can add here more in that way. But before that, cultural assimilation, Payam and Jim has already given a lot of thoughts in it. And here, to make it more, to keep it in the back of our head, I want to add a few more points, like how it's taking place. It's just not just in one form, it's multiple, like how it has invaded in our culture and custom, how it has influenced in our language, how we understand our identity, how we are eating our food. We need to look at all these things. And all these factors, how it has permeated and crystallized in our way of life, in our society. Like now we see everything, everything Western as something good. We are seeing something, everything Korean, everything that comes from outside as good. We are not looking in our culture, that is the good things in our culture. What I mean is, no cultures are absolutely the best. There are a lot of things that could be very wrong, and there are a lot of things that could be not very good for them, but not for us. So, here, we need to think about that. And now we also need to reflect on whether all this assimilation, whether it is voluntary or whether it is forced. Because I hope I'm not going too extreme, but we were colonized and then we lived through a military regime. So there are a lot of influences that we need to think about, the nuances that is involved in all this when we talk about cultural assimilation. When I was growing up, I studied in a boarding school, state-run. There, on Sundays, we don't go to church, we watch Mahabharata. And at that time, I was still too young to understand how it was affecting me. But as I grow up and then think back, it was a subtle way of, I wouldn't say force, but very subtle way of pushing us to a different direction that is so different from my culture. So, cultural assimilation, how it has affected us: colonization, militarization, the K-pop culture we're seeing. And here, it is a little outside the point, but let us also, in between all these things, the subtle thing like electoral politics. We don't have this system. So when decisions were taken, all these factors, decision making, it was consensus. Electoral politics and social divide, and it's going to get worse as you grow up to the national. But then, fortunately, we are still, in many ways, our culture, it has changed, but we still have a lot of those good things that was given to us from by our ancestors. And one of the reasons I observe is that we still have very close relationships with our land. Itungwe tingpun luibat katong ye lui khawa kiki panit lui de revolve around sai mnimla lui re mangkhap yar kshakain da lui ba rok ja tamai na khira ye itungwe Mahapanit thoroughly saya, Jumpu Panit. All these festivals are related to our land, and this we should be grateful that this has made us root tree. It has brought us back again and again, whether we like it or not. So cultural assimilation, how do we see it? Collectivism versus individualism. In Western culture, clay community, it Yarui, Probaina, Shanje. Akuma Sada Optira community, so with the Hida we come daily to me, Anam Jim the Hankaya, balance Mishaw, he Tarakas Haxer by Kapar balance of Kapara Taraka by. It only influence other year. How do we handle it? Can we do it? If our culture have lost, can we retrieve it back? Here reflects some supply. It only from the clipping. Only the higher mind Jim the humble my longshim Muckling Brashira Hainer Saze, it only militarized the Shiba Munga Wai. 1950s, Adam River, Krajan Hag, Sang Zimli, Pong here, and Chipoka, that Loshim Kai, Sapimana with the Shai, that in a tree, Krajan Sadamia. So the moment they stopped having this Longshim, the education that came with it, the oral tradition that was passed down, we lost a lot of it during this time. The retrieves up by the only thing we can do is start researching and then start reporting, write it down. I think it's very important with that. My background research, beyond that, a poem or little prose here and there. Influence society already in the play. I'm more like a reactionary writer if we, when it comes to the few poems that I have written, the rage that I felt at that time, the anger, because it was the only way I feel that I could let out Mercury, because sometimes sarcasm is the best weapon that we can use against our enemy without harming anyone. Politics with some nation or cream history not I don't fix in I'm not fixed with one genre. They had a capita training. Now actually the discussion this some of manjana ideas. He panelist speaker the kapam ideas in Tumaina to make hard on the discuss how no say Nishna.
Hello. Okay, so we will start the round of discussion. My question will be for Payam Relay. Okay, now since the crowd consists of a lot of students, and since most of the uncles here are Christian, I think most of us have heard of the parable of the prodigal son. Yes? Prodigal son? Okay, so we all know about the story of prodigal son, and this has become like a moral story for most of us. And I would like to ask Payam, If we can start using fables from our folklore and folktales, not trying to replace the Christian parables or the Christian stories, but like, can we start using our fables, our folktales to teach moral lessons to kids in this generation?
My sub idea. I itu contextualize sabai. Kimang ni juga itu kerjaan ni tamhui bai, sibui bai kung le sange. Kalau itu mengesan pun mansak se juga jiwa sabung ni how is it nak salah? Abi fables mana ni lah, kerjaan bi mana ni lah. Itu muzat nak sah. Itu mui ajar laga how na sah sah mengesan ni na Bible hi ngasih bai aga. Atau mungkin kita ada interpret sang samai. Example, jisu na Kristong lira timi, cuman dah. Cia, jamsa da tribe kandai bingwang lairik agari Ton Richardson na gabi, hai lairik ciri bayang ka atumui sawi tribe bingwang kagabi midi hat kami hina kikir sai da cina hero ni da jingai da jisu Kristen na itu bang timi da bau bahag shokli muknang na mukisang na Judas na Shirui your zawi jibaji oh Judas ba hero mo da kui. The contextualize musa sorry musa na je. Sawi tribe pingwi azat khana di juda so taw sa hui laga kapik laga hat laga sa da chai ga athuma jina ki hero ne da kui sa da khya yo ne da ka jisu na timi jiba sa da mu la Judas na Shirui or zawi sabta kuini. The igada contextualization ni tada contextualize musa ka ba phamda bumai. Ba wa ha jok phamda me. Jumai ne dum how now sa da ring ngai ne. Hangkha na hangkha sa ki jine. Hangkha nda ba rap sang lo. Jida ka mai ne itu mili zat na ra hai itu ma shi di long ga itu ring ra hai itu kharjan di ngashik laga kharjan no shan no hang ji dera ka phaptare itu mi context liba jisu na thi kimi ni ga relate ku sam se ju di na wi shan ne jiba itu mi shan nim ne jisu na thi kimi wi kharjan jiba atu mi shan ne itu mi relate ku sam bu ba ko itu mi musul wi se jiba acha la ga futwi da mishutwi da ya mashab zala mishutwi ka musum sali han ku ya ga sharba jina harba ji kui daga harba ba kui daga chili shimku khni sina mang han la shi hai bang lungwa dai da khon chi sang gai ji harba ji khon chi sang ji sharba ba ji harba ba ji khon chi sang ga ani wi more khon shat singa kham khau ani na sambang gi ji kla shi ong ga harba ji khon chi sang ai daga harba ji jo wi ji harba ji mi ba ga nam tuk shai ba harbaji ba an tukshar misa da chai bai ka ta da ari rar ta da ba wuji harbahi na ani kidi wi more ku dim mai na harbahi na ani wi khon cha chi ku dim mai jili mu khon ku mi wi how wi mission ni jada ji krista na itu li rati mi mu khon ku mi itu mu more ku dim mi itu wi how mission ni khala choga ba kharjan mang ni ma jada da harbaji na mu khon ku mi da ji shu na mu khon mi ji
I will read out a short excerpt from my Jim's book, Creating Memories from My Land. It is titled A Bus Ride to Freedom. So the first stanza goes, once in my hometown, I saw a boy accept an orange candy from an army personnel. I thought he was brave, but then we lived through different times. I smiled, believing then that our world was changing for the better. In the 90s, we grew up being told not to look into their eyes and not linger after school. Okay, this is written by Jim, and this will be available there. Now, the connection that I wanted to make was, this came out recently in 2023, but he had already written something about a schoolboy returning home from Independence Day, and his first book, Homecoming, a tea in the evening,
Tea on Sunday evening.
a tea on a Sunday evening. So, like, Darkles, we have gone through different phases of, I think, assimilation, and with this assimilation, we only think about culture, like food habits, clothes, but sometimes we also, I think, there are some traces of trauma associated with it as well. So I think after colonization and after the British left India, we were again, I think, in some way colonized by India. And then the trauma, or let's say the effects of the arrival of the army, especially the Assam Rifles in the northeastern part, has been vividly written in his book. And I would like to ask him if his experiences have shaped his writing, and also if there are still some trauma left regarding the 90s period.
Okay, so before addressing that, as she has already said, Leah has already said, I have a new book titled The Last Free Naga. So, it's not a story about some Naga hero. It's about, the title story is a story of my grandma. So, she wouldn't give into anything, right? She wouldn't give into other people's cultures. She saw the world through her own eyes, through the lens of as a Naga woman. And that was not the same for me, right? Because I was educated, and I think from an early age we have had this unconscious fear of talking to a Naga to an Indian army, and there's always been there, that fear. And as a free Naga, we roam without an ID. ID was not required, right? We didn't have Aadhaar cards. My grandmother didn't have birth records. It was not necessary, all of this. It came, with colonization. It came as a part of, assimilating into a larger culture. So I would say I try to address these issues that are already pertinent. And in the 90s, I would say I did grow up in a situation where before the ceasefire, in 97, when the ceasefire was signed, I think I was in class 7. So I didn't get to see a lot of, action. But then, this story, Tea on Sunday evening was told to me by a senior of mine, who has now passed away. And, I added layers upon it. It is a very simple story, of how family's ritual of drinking tea on Sunday evening was torn apart when the army had a barrage, and then during independence celebration. It was based on a true event. I think it happened maybe in 93, 94. So it's there. I think we didn't get to see it firsthand, but we saw scars of it, and we continue to write about it because as someone who has lived in this land, I think it's upon me to tell my story. We don't have a lot of tools, like unlike people who have we have a first generation college going people, but a lot of people have gone through the modernization, through that process much earlier than us. But what we have is our legacy, our story, which nobody can come and tell it as it is, come and narrate as it is. So I try to stay to that sentiment, carrying on that legacy.
Okay, the audience here, I think most of the audience did not go through the trauma of like running home after school just so that you can escape from such sudden conflicts between the, let's say, the army and our NSNIM. So, like, he has gone, like, he did not even...
Okay, I just add to that. I forgot about a big trauma. Sorry. So this was before the 97, before the ceasefire. We had a group of Naga volunteers stationed in my village. So every time, there's we learn to recognize a different sound of bells. Like if it's like a very rhythmic tang 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 tang, then it is to say that the army has come. And if it is like ting ting ting, then it's someone has died. Like so, you learn to identify that, right? It is essential skills to survival. And I remember one time, the bell rang frantically, and my father ran home. It was on Sunday evening. My father ran home saying, the survivor had come, and so we had this path cut out in the forest on a big ravine, on a slope, like steep slope. So we had this small road cut out, which is hidden to anyone but ourselves. So we had plans like that. People dug bunkers underneath their houses, stuff like that. So I remember that. I grew up seeing, experiencing all this trauma. So.
I think during this time we should thank God that we are not going through such circumstances, especially the present generation. Because even I remember when I was 3 years old, like gunshots were heard and we had to hide beneath our beds. And I remember this event because it was my brother's birthday and we had cooked chicken. And usually back in those days we don't eat chicken like randomly, like these days you can go to shop and like you can get chicken anytime. But those days we have to ask neighbors, or we have to specially keep one chicken for special occasions. So that day I did not get to eat chicken. That is why that trauma is still with me. The gunshots are there, but like the trauma of not eating chicken. So I'll direct my next question to Achon Chui. She has contributed to this book, The Red Rhododendron Sings, and I'm also part of it. She has contributed 40 poems, and most of them they deal with gender roles, social issues, nationalism, motherhood. And then in one of her poems, The Laundry Day, she talks about her daughter. I think she's here with us. How the mother is doing laundry, and her eldest daughter is playing, but she also wants to help the mother, but as a child she also wants to play. But even the girl, as a young girl, her daughter realized that if she was a boy, she would get the chance to play instead of helping her mother. So I would like to ask her if there has been shift in gender roles after over these past years, when we compare it to our ancestors and now.
How do I put this? Sometimes I feel that we are going backward. Because of when we are growing up, I work under the Ministry of Women and Child Development to deal with women in distress, women and girls who are facing violence. And looking at all these things, I'm looking at stories, real cases where the things that I didn't expect to see when I was growing up. We didn't hear of it. For example, child sexual abuse, it's happening. So when I look at all these social issues, I feel that we are going backward. When we look at how women were treated in the good old days, it was very different. Like we talk, the villages, they were warring villages. During those days, women safety was a priority, and men took it up as a job, as their daily responsibility, that they have to take care of the women. So when they go to the field, the men were the one who let yeah, something like that, no? Yeah, Payam is saying, yeah, Raikan. So men were like a bulwark for the women so that they don't face all these they don't face the violence. Now, how women are being seen when we hear Jim just say tang tang tang. The moment we hear that, you can hear from the public address system, all the women come out, come out with your torch, that army. Yeah, the women are expected to protect the men. How do we, is it, now it's for you to think whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. How I think we are really going backward. The things that was good, it is lost in the process. So at the same time, there are a lot of things that is improving also. Like we are seeing women who are economically more independent, and I think it's going to be a very strong factor how our community is going to move ahead. When women are independent, we have to be honest, let us acknowledge it. There's going to be a lot less violence happening towards her, because this is, I'm talking from my experience. Many women, they are physically abused in their home, and they are scared of moving out of their homes because thinking about their children, thinking that what will they do since they are not financially independent, they have to depend on their husband, their in-laws. So when women are strong enough, I see that financial independence is as we are seeing it. And in Ukrul, at least there are a lot of stories where the daughters, they go and work outside, and then they help their family to build up their business, their brothers, their younger siblings' education. Not just the younger, even the older siblings' education. The women are the ones working. So if we look at this, the general role, in many ways it's shifting. But at the same time, we also have to, we cannot just separate everything in one room like this. We have to look at it in a holistic way. So I'm throwing the ideas at you. It's for you to decide whether we are regressing, whether we are improving, or we are really not changing. In many ways, we are changing, that I admit, but whether it's for good, I find it very difficult to say that we are doing better.
Okay, now we have around 10 minutes for the audience. So if anyone has a question for our
Please ask questions. Today we have prizes for those asking questions. We have prizes, yes.
Thank you. My question is for Jim. You had shared your experience about trauma through conflict, and also I just wanted to understand your journey of mental health across this, and how you navigated it, and how you think conflict assimilation has impacted the mental health, and how we can go on about it. Because in a community like ours, where the mental health vocabulary is not even developed, and the concept of mental health is very dormant, how do you think the navigation has been from your experience? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
I think it's a very tough question, because I myself have never addressed mental health. I think it is to do with, our understanding of man, and what we say in our society, what we speak and what we don't speak. And as we talked about Cowboy Jim to Upajin, I think, earlier in our culture, we worshipped, we looked up to being tough. That part, of me wanting to become a Shaktiman driver, Naga army, all of those points to that, being tough. And understanding, looking within, I think in a safer environment now, it is easier for us to reflect and think about, what I have gone through. One thing is that I have never felt, the need to talk about this issue, because growing up in an oral culture where you know, an oral culture is where societies where we have, you know, we share information, where there's always knowledge passed on. And I think, you know, that storytelling by the fire, that being able to talk to all my relatives, all my friends, all my cousins, that makes it easier in a way. And this has never been like an isolated, you know, event. So as a shared community, I think we cope it together as a community, knowing that everyone has gone through it, and makes it easier, I guess.
Thank you. I'll just add one more question to that for ma'am. Because we cannot look at mental health without looking at violence, right? So as a largely patriarchal society, what do you think, what would your suggestion be to the men folk who are largely in policy making in the village or in the church or in the council? What would be your one takeaway for them?
Very inconvenient question. I always say patriarchy is not bad as such, but it's how it has been used to suppress women. But now my view is shifting, as I have two daughters, and the way when people have come to our home or when we meet them, they say, "Oh, you should have a son to take on the family name," as if they stop being our daughters when they grow up, when they get married. Even now, when people ask me from which village I am, I always tell them my father's village, not my husband's village, because this is how I identified myself since I was a child. And the moment I got married, how come I belong? It's not that I'm against it, but our identity of a woman, my identity as a woman has always been decided by how patriarchy defines us. And this, I think our men should really reflect on it. That being said, I'm not saying that when we talk about patriarchy, it has a lot to do with our inheritance, not about property rights, but because then it becomes a very different narrative. Because when we look at Shimlikat, then it is also a lot to do with how we survive as a people, we survive as a community. All these things will come up, land alienation, ideas. Then at the end of the day, it's going to influence our identity as a people. So when it comes to Shimlikat, I always look at how we are going to balance it. But beyond that, decision making, I don't know how many of you have read the Constitution of Tangkhul Naga. It says it's for the whole community, but and it has never banned women to run for the president. We still, till now, there's no women in the highest body. We should be asking how we're going to change that, how we're going to navigate a system that is so man-controlled, so patriarchal that women are seen as somebody, as an outsider. So to take it forward, I should say that men should look at how their decision is affecting their wives, their daughters, their sisters. Instead of saying, "Shinao, shinao, shinao," instead of seeing women as an enemy or women as somebody they have to fight with, I want them to see them as partners so that they can work hand in hand and make better things better.
Questions, please. Last question. Last question, yes.
This question is for Hayam, but then I don't know whether it's relevant or not. But then, what as your strongly rooted culture, you're like you know about this. So I want to know your opinion on the take of John Jurin talk. Like, what do you think?
plan 상하이 I feminism aron jamsada chui perspective ai hanga hello chui shongai da hanga itumi how we mission na kitunga aron rek dai sinauli kla chimning ni ana mangale hangai la sangai de sinauli sakla ai kuizai sinauli sakla kai na ngap ni sa kiji hangai de ka jimang ning la arui hon sinau na sa ji menau na sa kai menau na sinau ka sa kai jamsa da tang khul wi atum da research sa ga thel menau bing li college kham tha ta de dam sap sinau bing no otsa za ppo li otsa za cabin crew sa za ocha nau sa za ga menau bing ba le like institution kham tha ta de dam sa de chi idung wi ki ge shift sa kai ja ka de ka ara aka shong ai da hang ji ga arwi ng lei wu shong jamsa da sinau li ng lei miao se jo inheritance da ji ta wu shong ai da kra de ri ko shin ji sinau li ai miao se simli ga ti miao se je ga ju li ga sa ga le ntum nam chu sa ngai na bihari di fu wai ga sinau li ng lei mi ko ai ga idung wi na ga ng lei sinau li miao la ntum ma si dum chu ke ma ji ba ji thank you
The question continues and like Shimui-kat menikna, tanggung kay Shimui-kat menikna, itong culturally support sa kay bang, sinaw di hanung kay bang, sinaw bang support sa kay na kikane ki culturally root na tayo na ba, dapat sa kay like the future bang na.
Ara sinaw li administration masing sa munpun himsang sa ne masing sab ne ji da tada ji jungla kai na hang ka humi li de sinau na ma sa de ada athum da la kigre sa bo de decision tu da ku bo de ajon dang itum na awe la dang bui ba ya ga ba athum kigre khwa mi jim lai le ka shongfu sa hum ni sinau bing na ai sing lei hi mukui lak se lei him thara en shongfu him thara en samum sak se compensation mukui lak se kha shongfu him thara en sami ru no ji him me nau bing ni hai le ka me nau bing the decision ku kui ni che na itum na sinau bing na thangme ka sinau bing na decision ku kui tha ne me nau ba me nau na decision ku kui na in our country first atham 영가로 땅굴이 심락 그치 어디 맨 어디 신나는 나오더라고 그러면 디시션을 신나는 거 보고 알고 쟤는 집아지 악시다 뭐좀 디시션 봐봐 아미가는 그거 있나라 그냥 어디가 신나는 디시션 보고 이래
Ajun na hang right you today. Please pass on the mic to her response.
NRGS we shong from there. NRGS is from the step. It's like 1 feet or two, more than 1 feet. For guys, it will be very easy to climb, but for women, especially the old women, and who decided to make that kind of road? No, the thing is, and for clarification, Shimlikat, I'm not asking for Shimlikat. I'm asking for how we are going to treat our daughters, how we are going to treat our women. So, decision making, yeah, a lot of things, women, I admit, I have a lot of influence in my family, but it is because they gave me the space to do so. In many families, they are not doing that. And one of the best examples is how during election, the vote, it is the man who comes and gather, and then they have meetings after meeting, discussions after discussion, and then they say, okay, we have decided. They never ask the woman whether whom she wants to vote. What was her opinion? Just one example. And we have Being the other influencer, we are improving, progressing a lot on that. But we cannot take one exception, stories as to generalize the whole community. We still have a long way to go. That doesn't mean that I'm belittling whatever is happening around us, the good things. But if all of us can do that, all of us can participate in all this thing together, then I think we can see more shift, more changes.
I think the party will never end if we keep on answering back and forth. So I think we'll take it down the stage and we can fight it over there. I'm stopping him.
Such an exciting session that was. I also wanted to ask questions, but I think we can ask questions among ourselves, among our peer groups also. I think we can carry that on among our small groups. Before we move on to the next session, I have some quizzes for you, for the audience. We have prizes today. I feel like Oprah. You get a car, you get a car, you get a car. So you get a book, you get like illustrated books. If you answer some of the questions, if you were paying attention to the session, you will know, you should know. So some of the questions are, it's open to everyone. What was nothing showing on the screen. What was the name of the book where some of Chuan Chui's poems as well as Lea Chuan's poems are included? The anthology of poems. It was mentioned, I think, two or three times in the session, during the session. What is the name of the title, the book title of the anthology of poems? The first anthology of poems. Just rhododendron? Okay, could you stand up and... Yes? Rhododendron? It's not complete. Okay. Should we give the prize? Or no? You decide. Should we hand over should we give her a book? Yes? Okay. It's the Red Rhododendron Songs, compiled, edited by A.C. Karimpam. It includes a lot of Tangkhul poets and their poetry. I think you can get it in Pasay bookstore, which is there on the left. He compiled with dining hall So just go and visit the stalls. We have all the books that we discussed here in this literature festival available in the bookstores. So you get a book. Get one volunteer come and pick this up. Okay, another question I have. Yeah. Can somebody name the second book of Amay Jim Umamyao? Yes. Yes. Thank you. You get a book too. This is a difficult one. I will include quizzes in between sessions. This is not related to the session we had. It's just general information about, general knowledge about our literary history, Tangkhul literary history. Oh, this was mentioned in the session. I forgot. in passing. If you paid attention, you would know. What is the name of the book, the first book of poems published in 1920 that was mentioned by Amay Jim? Anybody? Anyone? Just, even if you don't know the whole book name also, just like somebody did, rhododendron, any? Yes, thank you. You want a book? She's donating the book to the audience. The next one. Okay. I want to go on. So many questions to ask. Okay, this is not related to the session at all. We should all know this as it's about our Tangkhul literature history. It's about our history. There was a man. He worked as the assistant interpreter of the 22nd Manipur Labour Corps Company during the First World War. And he wrote a lot of books about his experiences of going to France in the First World War. Who is this person? Anybody? Yes! You get a vote. Kanrei Shaiza. He wrote two books of his experiences of going to France. The book name is Apuk Apagali Rai Rai Khare. Apuk Apaga Rai Rai Khare. And another book is France Khava. And another book he wrote, Republic Day 1974 Delhi Kaka. These are some of the books that he wrote. This was published in 1971, I think. Yeah, so these are small, tiny booklets which are still available in print, which may still be available in old bookstores. You can check out UV bookstores and all. It recounts the story. It's sort of autobiography. He recounts his experiences of going to France during the First World War. So I thought this was important for us to know. So I will have more quizzes in between. Now we move on to the next session, which is Where the Roads End, Stories from Forgotten Regions. And we have Brother Riley Rocky Zipao as our speaker. I hope I pronounced your name correct. Yes, thank you. This will be moderated by P.S. Somingam. He is a research scholar. I think you submitted your PhD recently. Yes, from TIS Mumbai. He is, his research work is on, let me check again. Yes, his research area, his specialization is in public policy and governance. I give the time to P.S. Somingam and Brother Sir Rocky. Yeah.
Morning. I think our session is going to be either one of the most interesting session or the most boring one. Because the way of how we are going to approach our conversation is a little different from the way we did earlier and yesterday. So the way how we are going to approach our conversation is little academic in nature. When I say academic, then there are certain concepts and jargons also, and also the way how, the perspective we look at this topic is, I'm not sure how it will connect with the audience, but we shall try our best to make it interesting. So this session will be taken up by our brother Rocky, yeah, who is an established scholar in the field of political economy, infrastructure, borderland studies, tribal studies, and so many more. And currently he is an associate professor at Indian Institute of Technology in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. Also to introduce more about our speaker, he is an author of 2 books. One of his books is this one. The name of the book is Infrastructure of Injustice, State and Politics in Manipur in Northeast India. I think his magnum opus, I should say. Yeah, the first book also, one of the most read book, and then published by the Routledge, Taylor and Francis. And the second book is Land, Words and Resilient Culture, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. And I think the third book is on the way. Yeah. So apart from these 3 books, he has also published a lot of edge-cutting research articles and manuscripts published by various leading international and national journals. So, for me, I closely follow his work. I have studied his work. I have included his work in my thesis. So it's really an honor to host, him on this occasion. It's an honor, Brother Rogi, to sit together on the dais, whom I have read a lot and looked up a lot. He also mentored me a lot in my initial PhD years. So with that, just before we get into to introduce you more about Rocky, he, after completing his PhD from Tata Institute of Social Science, he is also a recipient of Raghuram Family Fellow, where he did his postdoctoral in University of Harvard. Apart from that, he's also the academic convener of the Tribal Intellectual Collective. So that's about our speaker. So coming just to get into the discussion, Rocky, you have written a lot of books. You have been an academic star, I should say, from the region as of now. He has, in his field of research, he has published a lot of works, and he came from the first generation learner like many of us, and he get into a very prestigious institute, went to Harvard, came back to India, and then get into Indian Institute of Technology without reservation. So, this is an unexpected question for you. So, what is the key of your success? How much discipline, perseverance, and work it takes place in your success?
Check. I wanted to begin with a disclaimer. I'm not a dedicated Christian youth. So hence, I think I have the liberty to critique the church as well. And at the same time, what's around us, So, I'm so used to Somikam calling me brother, so I would like to also address him back as a brother. But nevertheless, he's going to receive his PhD very soon, and I would like to address him as a Dr. Somikam. The kind of effort he has put in, the work he has done and written is really amazing work. So the next scholar to check out in this Tantra community is please read his work. Yeah. Having said that, thank you so much for your generous introduction, which I don't really deserve. And when I hold the mic, I had the tendency, to go on and speak, being, in this academic field. So when you get bored, please raise your hand, please signal me that, oh damn, it's time for you to stop, Otherwise I can go on, and we're so used to with the idea of the chalk and the whiteboard. The moment we catch hold of the chalk and the whiteboard, we don't know how to draw the line. So just to begin the questions, I think if I reflect on myself in the academic journey, I had a very, very interesting academic journey. Growing up in the village, where roads are not motorables, where roads in the monsoon seasons are not drivable, where one has to climb the mountain to make a phone call, or also to receive a check and email, or for that matter, where electricity is regularly irregular, Those are the kind of situation I grew up. And I was wondering and pondering upon what is this structure that is so different in a hill terrain, particularly in the context of Manipur. And as I ponder upon it, these are the questions which confronted me. And one of the way in which I try to figure out, and I still struggle till today, and I would not like to put that as a part of success, is that when I read the books of, say for instance, J.J. Hudens, the books of Hemendrov, I turned the pages and said, oh damn, this is my reality. I've been informed about our Naga reality based on someone else's lens, based on somebody else's gaze to understand about my culture, my society. So the question that struck me is that what happened when tribes or when Nagas refuse to dance for others? When Nagas refuse to be data for someone else? I think that draws an inspiration for me to write and also to pursue in the academic career, or let's say to work in my academic journey, in the sense that if we are not in the position to assert our own voice, our own narrative, who are we waiting for? So that is the stage that draws me into this academic field. And I'm so thankful that I got an opportunity to be at Harvard University to understand the kind of cutting-edge debate in terms of technologies, in terms of theoretical framework, and also to be in a place like IIT Bombay, what's going on, the kind of research, the kind of AI which one is talking about. So rather than talking about my success, I think it's been more important for me to reflect on how I felt towards my journey,
Just to add one thing, I'm going to address this one in Tamil. It's a secret. Zagli younger gangster, he looks very undisciplined, looks like a gangster, but when it comes to work ethics, the compromise monks have ini campus ang lipam saya, itu senior ne, in a master kesahatan dia PhD person. And we Naga scholars we enjoy ni kerja kesahi, we can actually, we say that from the some shock mangai, only melidong lala, library we makangara lom library bilo, upai sih, itu this we history Naga now being chung kena jika saya no. So yeah, so sini jauh mana. So, Rocky, coming back to your research regarding this book, you have written a lot about infrastructure, injustice, Syrian politics in Manipur and Northeast India. So, I was just wondering, how do, because when we say Northeast, this is not, very convenient for me. So, when we do research about ourselves, our communities, when we do research about Northeast, how do we make sense of Northeast? When we write, when we tell stories, when we research, how do we make sense of Northeast? Because for me, Northeast is, it's a political administrative term, and it's a multidimensional concept as well, and it's a highly contested concept. For instance, Northeast is also identified as, dual administrative category, sometimes as a borderland, sometimes as a disturbed region, sometimes as an infrastructural deficit region, sometimes as a governance deficit region. So, and then Northeast for us is also a homeland, right? So how do we make sense of ourselves when we have to do research or when we have to tell stories about ourselves?
Well, I don't have an immediate answer, but I can reflect on the questions on the very category Northeast and how do I as a researcher make sense of the very category Northeast. And for that matter, I need to go back to my locations. In the sense that I come from a village called Puru belonging to Pumai Naga community. And I trace my origin to this Michael, which is called the Naga dispersal site. It is from this location that I try to inform, and my worldviews are also being informed from that very perspective. The way how Pumai Naga look at certain social reality. And also I link myself to the lineage system in such a way of the Michael areas and link to the larger identity of the Naga as a tribe. So having embedded within those worldviews, and I try to look at the very category Northeast India. And from the researcher's point of view, or from the academics, Northeast, as you say, rightly pointed out, is indeed an administrative category. And if we look at the very concept, how did Northeast category came about, is also we need to historicize in the sense that where does this Northeastern Council stems from? After the NEC, as it came out in the forms of the mini planning body, and we have what's called this separate ministry and donor. At the same time, now there are many institutions like even JNU, Jamia, TEAS, you name it. They have started a center for Northeast studies. And now we have this Northeast Student Organization or Northeast Historical Association, or for that matter, Northeast Sociological Association. Those are the categories in a way that legitimizes and at the same time also gets in the way the academic inputs. Otherwise, if we look at from the touristic lexicon, Northeast comprises what is called the seven sister, and with the addition of the Sikkim, it becomes the seven sister and one brother, you know. So how do we make sense of the seven sister and one brother, which is very diverse in nature? At the same time, the kind of social reality that produced from the state of Manipur, the state of Nagaland, that of Assam, Tripura, it's all very diverse. So for that matter, Northeast is not a homogeneous category. And many a time we look from the perspective of those from the outside of Northeast and say, or Northeast India comprises of tribes, you know. But what does the statistics say about it in the context of Northeast? Tribes in Northeast comprises merely 25% of the total populations. And you say Northeast is a mosaic of culture and a mosaic of the comprises of the various ethnic and tribal group. But that is a false conception. So given this kind of diversity is important for us to also understand and say that is there a space for us to coexist and also have a dialogue, have a conversation with a mutual respect in such a way that your knowledge, my knowledge, the kind of my very being, my very becoming is being informed, you know, in the sense that rather than privileging the so-called dominant voices, is there a space for the voices from the margin to be accommodated? So these are the kind of framework that inspires me, that draws me, that I lean towards to this global indigenous forum in the context of, say, what are those indigenous people in the context of New Zealand, Australia, for that matter Latin America, or for that matter even Canada, what are their positionality? And what is the kind of knowledge which they're being producing in that fray? Can we, indigenous tribal people knowledge system can also be embedded within those kind of framework and have a dialogue and conversation? And only then I make sense of the very category Northeast India. Otherwise, it's just a term. And it's just a category. And one of the beauty about being in academics is also that constantly we are engaging on creating a new category, a new concept. That is what I think our contributions. And through those categories, it helps us to inform what the kind of social structure, you know. And I was just trying to listen carefully the previous sessions. I could not able to make sense much. But one thing which very important strikes me was that when man was pointing out in terms of who decides when one builds the steps. So where are the spaces for the woman? So in academics, we call the gendering of infrastructure. In the sense that who decides what infrastructure to build? And where should be the location of the pond to fetch the water? So having this kind of reality emerging, embedded in the context is important for us to also make sense of the very category Northeast. Yeah. Yeah. If I take too much, then please stop me.
Sure, that's a brilliant response. Yeah. So I just want to move on again to since you have mentioned about tribes and indigenous. When we talk about Northeast and tribes and indigenous communities, automatically comes into being. So so you have also at your academic professional level closely associated with tribal intellectual collective. Yeah, he's also an academic convener, as I've mentioned. So, according to you, what are some of the latest key areas of debates when it comes to, say, tribal studies or indigenous studies in India, or specifically in context of Northeast? Or maybe you can also relate to Southeast Asia and other global debate and discourse. Yeah.
Well, I think I like to begin with an anecdote. Last year, I offered a course called Introduction to Northeast India to my IT students, the so-called the great minds of India who's going to be the nation builder for tomorrow. And I also offer a course on tribal studies. So there were 450 students right in front of me, and I'm going to introduce the category tribes. Scheduled tribe, from the if you look at the administrative point of view. So my question to them was that, have you seen Brahmins? They say, yes sir, we have seen Brahmins. I said, have you seen Kshatriyas? They say, yes sir. Have you seen Dalits? They say, yes. What about Atisudras? They say, yes. And the question which I asked them, have you seen a tribal man or a woman? The response was that, sir, we have seen them in movies. We have seen them in print. We have seen them in reels and social media. I just paused for a minute. I said, please look at me once. For those of you who have not seen it, please look at me once, I said. There's a person standing right in front of you and he is a tribal boy. So I asked, what is this tribal fest? Do we have a tribal fest? Or for that matter, Butters talks about what is this Indian fest, How is our fest different from that of others? So they were like, okay, there's one tribal professor standing right in front of me. That was my introduction to my student who has no clue about what this tribe is about. And in their image, it's all about, we are this half-naked, 7 people without history, blah, blah, you name it. And where is that history begin? It begins from the colonial anthropologists come administrators. The way how these colonial anthropologists inform about, let's say, for that matter, the Naga cultures. Nagas as headhunters. Nagas as savage. Nagas as people without history. Are you saying that you're denying my agency? Are you saying that we don't have our foreparents? Where is our root? Are you denying the very concept of land? So in that context, when it comes to about the tribal studies, the kind of the latest debate taking place is also, of course, yesterday we had a good conversation. But we need to also understand what the colonial anthropologist has written about in terms of the tribal studies or in terms of the tribe. Beginning from the very egg of conceiving, who are tribes? Who are Lotha Nagas for that matter? Who are the Angami Nagas, the Sumi Nagas, the way they have written down about us. In the sense that the kind of methodology, frame of reference, methods to unravel those kind of realities are informed by the universal framework of the Eurocentric universal aspect. But we need to also understand we also have a location. The location that inform our worldview. The kind of methods which we used. important for us to embed ourselves to understand. So having said that, in terms of these tribal studies or the latest debate taking place in the context of this tribal intellectual collective India for that matter, is that there are predominantly two perspectives. The dominant perspective is what's called the perspective from above, stemming from the Brahminical and that of the Eurocentric. So the concept of the white man burden to civilize those people, the poor tribals, that's became the very dominant framework till today. And there is another framework that stems from the subaltern studies, which is called perspective from below. In the sense of how do we unravel our history from perspective from below? So the question which we ask is that where do tribals stem from? Are we from above or from below? We were reflecting on those very dominant. We are neither from above nor from below, but can we bring perspective from within to unravel our own social reality? To understand the kind of social structure that binded us? To understand the nation state and also understand our reality? So it is this perspective from within that informs in order to understand the multiple realities of tribal communities which are span across India. And there are more than 704 communities enlisted as settled tribes in India. And the very category where is that the settled tribe comes from, many a time I was discussing with my the elder brother who was world in from, in the sense of the category scheduled tribe, of course, no doubt about the administrative category. And where is that rooted from? Article 342. Many a time we read that article in isolation without really referring to Article 340, which concern about the OBCs. Article 341, which concerns about the scheduled caste. We need to read that in relation in order to understand Article 342, in order to understand the definition of scheduled tribe, which entails the tribe as non-caste society. And yesterday, the kind of session take away from on the decolonization is as such that how do we locate the tribal gaze within that framework? And also, how do we also understand the decolonization approach coming from the caste perspective? So there is a danger in academics, particularly when we talk about decolonization, in the sense that we often misread the decolonization approach stemming from the caste reality and the decolonization approach stemming from the tribal reality. Those are two very contrast realities. It's important for us to make that distinction and brings up to the conversation in terms of the tribal studies. And that is, in fact, the latest kind of debate in terms even in method is also that what happened when you and I as a researcher start experiencing the kind of realities of our participants, the kind of realities like which our villagers are experiencing it. How do we call that? In the sense that in our group we call that as an engaged observations rather than participants' observations as a matter. In participants' observation, there is a coloniality, there is a power structure embedded within that. But in this engaged observation, you and I, as a mutual respect, rather than reducing one as an object, the other as a subject, can we engage as a subject and subject, have a dialogue, have a conversation? And this is what exactly this Shirui Literature Festival is doing, and I'm really thankful for bringing this kind of concept to this kind of platform.
Yeah. We have perfectly unpacked the continuity of the colonial discourse, both in academia as well as in other public domains. My question here is, yesterday we have talked about decolonization. That's everywhere. So we are going to pitch a little deeper on this. What is the way forward when it comes to tribal studies? Is this decolonization the way forward, or indigenization, or what's the difference between decolonization and indigenization? Yeah.
Listening to that question, I'm so tempted to stand and speak. Yeah? Because I'm very used to standing, walking up and down in the lecture hall and talks about. In fact, the questions which Dr. Somigam has asked is very, very pertinent. Is there a way forward? Yes, we do have a way forward. And that framework, that way forward has been laid out by Professor Virginus Kaka, who is considered as the dawn of tribal studies. And I was fortunate, I was one of his PhD students. In fact, learning from him the kind of framework is very interesting. I would like to quote him. He was saying that the anthropologists, both colonial anthropologists as well as Indian anthropologists, were busy looking for the tribes where there doesn't exist. They were trying to understand in such a way how much tribes has become part of caste society. For instance, Professor M.N. Srinivas, the way one talks about tribal communities as backward Hindus, in the sense that the way you practice your religion, your rituals has become so similar with that of the caste. So you are backward because you have incomplete transformation into a caste society. That is the kind of discourse in 1930s, in 1940s. Of course, it's been informed by a very nationalist perspective. Rather than bringing out the kind of the diversities that unifying the caste and non-caste society together and, to understand that. So Professor Kaka single-handedly challenged those kind of perspectives that stem from like M.N. Srinivas, N.K. Bose, you name it, in terms of the tribal studies. So for him is that it's important to study Tangkhul communities in its own right, without really comparing Tangkhuls with that of the Meiteis, for example. It's important to study Pumai as a tribe in its own right, without comparing Pumais with that of the Lotas, or for that matter, the Assamese society. So that is the framework it is being laid out. And having discussed about this, having this backdrop, it's also important to understand the kind of methodology. So if we continue to use the methodologies and the methods which have been framed according to the context of the Eurocentric, and we still use those methods to study our own society, we are just reproducing another kind of knowledge systems, without really contributing to the, the kind of the alternative epistemology. It's important for us to understand the kind of methods of analysis, methods of data collection from those perspectives of the Western. But at the same time, it's also important for us to understand, develop the kind of methods which are in tune or with the ethos of the tribal society. For instance, I'll give one example in terms of methods which we have developed or which we've been discussing about it. For many of tribal society, the first place where we sit around is in the kitchen, in the fire areas. That is the best conversation we used to have. So sitting around the fire and having a conversation, that in itself is one method of data collections. But if you go to the caste society, they won't allow you to enter in their kitchen unless we remove our chapel. What is that? Why is that so? It's the concept of purity and pollutions. And that stems from the superiority of the caste society. So for us, having identified those kind of methods, if so is an alternative. And if so is a part of this decolonial discourse, in the sense that locating ourselves within those very frameworks, rather than adopting what is called the universalizing the particular, but particularize the universal. In the sense that how do we contextualize the kind of reality that stems from here? For instance, the Shirui festival, what is it? The kind of festivals being celebration is an embodiment of our past. The kind of song and dances we perform is connecting to our ancestors, giving a tribute to the land which we came from. For us, this celebration is the very act of resistance. The kind of song, the folk song, the kind of dance we do, we are not the performers for that matter. In fact, we are rooting ourselves, connecting the past and trying to understand and linking that to the very concept of land, Land for us is a living entity. It's a part of these larger ecosystems. It is this land that informs our identity, our culture. So that in itself, I would say an alternative. And the way forward is that I would encourage my young friends to enter into the arena of academia,
Well, I think that's enough to, to lay out the, to lay it out to make sense of how, how to make sense of Northeast or the tribes or indigenous communities in Northeast. Now I will come back to your book, which is Infrastructure of Injustice, State and Politics in Manipur and Northeast India. I will first begin with a question. According to your big book, what is injustice? And have things changed by the time you wrote and now? If yes, why and how? If no, why and how?
Okay.
Would you like to?
Is there anyone who's good in mathematics? Just a quick calculation. Anyone? Can I just borrow this book and copy for a minute? If somebody can help me out with quick calculations.
Yeah.
I like to read out one paragraph from one of the contractor whom I interviewed. And I see there are bureaucrats, there are people, many from diverse fields, but please don't get offended. But this is not me saying it. And I want you all to calculate a little bit. He said, I recently purchased a work order of rupees 1 CR by paying rupees 5 lakhs to the concerned minister. The minister assured me of the contract work and also agreed to pay me 50% of the total bill in advance, so that the process of bidding for the tender would be a mere formality. But in order to begin working, I have to take a recommendation letter from the insurgent group operating in the project area, to whom I paid 5% of the total budget. Thus, much before the work began, I have already spent 10 lakhs. It is also mandatory that government of Manipur take 11.75% of the project's total budget. When the project started, the PWD official again took 10%. So in total, 31.75% of the total budget is gone, and I'm left only with rupees 68.25 lakhs. When the project begins, I have to pay the contractor dealing assistant, which is called CDA, since he is the most important person as he maintains each and every file of the contractor. Since the billing is done in Imphal and the PWD is in Imphal, I have to again pay insurgent groups operating in the valley, and normally we have a round-table negotiation with this group in a closed-door meeting. Again, to sanction bills, the cashier has to be given certain amount, or else he creates lots of problems. During every visit by PWD staff for work inspection, I have to pay them to approve the work. Since all the raw materials are transported from outside the state, every lot of goods has to pay taxes to both police department and checkposts as well as to insurgent groups. I'm left with barely 50% of the total budget, so ultimately the work quality get compromised. I don't know any one of you resonates to this story. And this is the kind of the foundations which I lay out in the book, the concepts of infrastructure of injustice. And in order to understand about the infrastructure of injustice, we need to understand what is infrastructural injustice. What is the concept of infrastructural deficit region, for that matter. So in my book, I navigate on these three concepts called infrastructure of injustice, infrastructural injustice, and also infrastructural deficits. So how do I begin this infrastructure of injustice? Do I locate it within the framework of the utilitarian theories? In the sense that the greatest happiness of the greatest good of the people. In the sense that, what about the question of those minorities? And comes back to this John Rawls concept of justice in terms of this fairness. And comes down to this Professor Amartya Sen's concept of justice. And of course, none other than Dr. B.R. Ambedkar when he talks about in the constitutions. the layout, the way how equality, fraternity is being embedded. So I try to look at the distributions of infrastructure across the district and also look at different regions and try to understand is that one of the core principles of the fundamental of physical infrastructure is built on land. And when the land is fractured, when the land is being fragmented because of this infrastructure development, it alters our society. It alters the governance structure. And more so, when those infrastructural projects, the benefits of those infrastructural projects does not accrue to those people, then that, my friend, I call it infrastructural injustice. And like in our previous session, when infrastructure, say for instance, building the steps are being decided by the manfolks, whereas the women are being left out. When those infrastructure concerning about the drinking water, supply of these things are being constructed from the male-centric gaze, that amounts to injustice. At the same time, it's important for us to also ask, who decides such infrastructure? Is there a space for us to embed the ethos of the tribal society in building those infrastructure? And also look about those kind of infrastructure created by the state. Have we taken up the ownership? One live example. Take this whole as an infrastructure mission component and go and compare with the district hospital. We have taken the ownerships of this infrastructure created. But whereas the kind of infrastructure like district hospital or a school, we as a community has not taken up the ownership and own it. And we have this nonchalant behavior as such that, oh, this Sarkari guy, government guy, no? The government is responsible. But where is our responsibility for that matter? And those are all the aspects which I locate in terms of the infrastructure injustice.
So when we talk about infrastructure, basically it's a domain of an engineer or say technocrats. You as a social scientist or development professionals or whatever, why do you have an interest to infrastructure?
Well, the question is...
Or the social and political dynamics about infrastructure, just laid out the context and...
Often, from the engineering point of view, what is concerned is how to construct a road, how to connect from village point A to point B, which is very material in nature. But at the same time, there is also called the social life of infrastructure. In the sense that where are those infrastructural projects located? Who are the one who construct those infrastructure? How much budget has been sanctioned for the creation of certain infrastructure? Who are the one that decides? Because when we talk about infrastructure, say, it will be very difficult for me to talk to the wall over here. Do the wall out here as a language to speak? How do I speak to the roads which has been created in front of me? Those are the materiality of the infrastructure. But when we try to look at the social life of infrastructure, we have that kind of perspective that emerges. Can we correlate ethnicity with that of infrastructure? Can we try to understand the kind of the communities who appropriate such infrastructure? Those are the domains of the sociologists, anthropologists, or for that matter, social sciences. In the sense of how do we make sense of those infrastructure? Why is this electricity, the light which is here, how is it connected to the society? And what are the processes of generating this infrastructure? So we try to capture the underlying structure, especially say for instance, when you watch a beautiful movie, you do not see the raw footage. You see the very refined movies. So the role of us as an academics is that to unravel those underlying structure, the raw footage, what's going on, and we come up like with a book. So my interest for that matter, studying infrastructure, stemmed from the very village where I was born and raised. As a child, I have to walk at least 3-4 kilometers to my school because there was no such called taxi or school van or a school bus. I could literally walk by foot. And the kind of that footpath leading to the schools was terrible. And as I say, the roads during monsoons are not even waterable. And when I go to other parts of the country, the infrastructure is very different. So that motivates me to understand what is this larger structure which we need to unravel. What are the social and political processes of building those infrastructure? What are the structure that hurdles in terms of bringing infrastructure? Those are things that motivates me.
Yeah, great, great. So I have a few questions with me, but with a time constraint, now I will open up for Q&A from the audience. If anybody wants to questions or add up anything or comment anything on our conversation, time is for everyone.
We have prizes for those who ask questions, just to encourage you to ask more questions. Yes.
Hi Rocky. One thing that you mentioned was to make sure that the voices that are at the margins get to speak. If somebody does belong to a dominant community, what would the way forward be to ensure that they can also do this for the people around them, to make sure that they can also bring up the voices around them without stealing the mic but passing the mic?
Should I answer that or can we collect?
Yeah, we can collect 2-3 questions more, and then Rocky can address together instead of responding to one by one.
Well, I think for those people to reflecting upon framing the questions, I'd like to answer to that question. I have no answer, but then I can reflect upon what's the kind of thing when you talks about the dominant communities as such. I think there's a way forward, theoretically as well as practically. And what is that way forward to address without harming the other communities as such that the moment the so-called dominant communities as such that comes and try to understand from the perspective of those people whom he or she studied and embed himself in that perspective and unravel the kind of the structure, there's no harm in doing that. Because in anthropology or in sociology, there is a debate in terms of insider versus outsiders. Can the outsiders study the insiders? Or say, for example, the very interesting debate is what is called the feminist standpoint. Can man study women? Those kind of things. So when we are also talking about in the context of the tribal studies, trying about the insider versus outsider, it doesn't make sense to us. It's not the insider or outsider, but it is the moment you embed yourself within the perspective of the communities whom you are studying. Say, for instance, you acknowledge that I acknowledge that my perspective is drawn from the Tangkhul communities, the Tangkhul ways of understanding their history, culture. Then you are locating what is called perspective from within. And that, I think anybody, any scholars can do it. If we have a bit of humility and also sensitivity, rather than appropriating those knowledge in the sense that many of us publish books, write books for our promotions, What about writing for our own communities? Inform the kind of realities that are taking place. I think that's important for us to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's interesting. Any more questions? If there are no more questions, then I think we should wind up here. Rocky will be here for a few days in Ukhrul. He'll be traveling here and there, anywhere. If you have questions, wherever you see, just ask him. whatever questions you have, you'll be here for some days. Yeah, so, yeah.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank this Shirui Literature Festival, especially the team, the kind of hard work you have put in. And I'm really impressed the way how the Literature Festival is being organized and make part of this larger Shirui Literature Festival. This is the kind of space where we can dialogue, have various communities, have a conversation without fighting. So thanks to your organizer.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Rocky, for your insightful session. Yeah, and thank you, everyone.
How exciting was that? Yeah. I didn't want him to stop talking. It got more interesting when he stood on the podium. Yeah. I wished he walked up and down also. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. P.S. Somikam and Dr. Brother Rocky, right? Yeah, I will include everything. Yeah. We shall be seated, but the volunteers will be coming to us with the refreshments, so don't move from your seats, please. We shall break later after this session. Just to announce that open mic poetry is happening later at 2:30 p.m. Open mic poetry is happening. So those who want to register, those who want to read out their poems in front of people, in front of this crowd, then you can register by the door. If you have brought your poems, then please register by the door. I have some more books to give away. So I have some questions. I hope you were listening right now, or okay. Yeah. I have some questions. What is the name, or what is the book that our speaker has authored? Anybody? What is the title of the book that our speaker has authored? I think he repeated it over and over again over the course of the session. Yes, can you please stand? Yes. Yes, yes. Wonderful. I hope you just don't take down the book and actually ask more about the book to him in person as well. Yeah. There is a second book by him, which I think was not clearly read out. It was in passing, so you might have missed. It's titled Land, Words, and Resilient Cultures, the Ontological Basis of Tribal Identity. I think this is edited along with somebody else, along with not just Rocky. So you can take down this book, take note of this book as well. Land, Words, and Resilient Cultures, the Ontological Basis of Tribal Identity. And I just want to, I'm saying this without permission, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind. Rocky is still around, Brother Rocky is still around, so please, if you are interested in knowing more about what he does and about our tribal culture and about everything that he has said in the session, please meet him, talk to him. He's a nice person, he's very jolly, and he's very helpful. So please go up to him and inquire more about books about other people, books that he's read. He will be able to inform you about this. You can approach Somingam as well if you're interested in research and taking up research. Please talk to them. Please make use of this opportunity to ask them about what to read, what to study, or what to be interested in. Yes. Now, I will do more quizzes later. We have a very special, I wouldn't say performance, I don't want to say performance also. It's oral storytelling and craft making. We will get to witness that from our dear brothers from Marine. Oh wait, okay. Are they ready? Oh, Microsoft, okay. Okay, so before that happens, the Microsoft team will come and take the time, and we will have. Yeah. You'll come here. Yes.
Thank you so much. I'll keep it super short. Hi, I'm Kumon. I'm representing Microsoft. I'm here with my colleague Hari Krishna. He's sitting right there. We've come from the CSR team. CSR is the Corporate Social Responsibility wing of Microsoft, and what we've brought with us are programs that will help you advance with the help of AI. You can come and see all the programs that we have. In case you're a student, you can help learn. If you're an entrepreneur, we have funding opportunities. If you're educators, we have more programs that you can give access to your students. So please come, we'll help you register and find access to all of these resources, and it's completely for free so that you can do it at your own pace and your own time. Yeah, we'll be right there in the stalls, and we'll be looking forward to speaking with you and any conversations that you have. Let me tell you a little bit about what it is and how it's different. We all have access to, boundless resources on the internet, YouTube right now. But what is different is with us, our CSR team will handhold you into finishing modules, finishing courses, and ensuring that you have certifications for everything that you learn. And with these certifications, you create a much stronger employability for yourself. So if that is something that you're looking forward to, please come to us. We're very happy to have a conversation about this. Shirui Lily Festival is going so amazing. We're really happy to be here. Thank you so much. Looking forward to meeting all of you. Thank you.
Atam hi 12:30 the performance oral storytelling by Marine. Our brothers from Marine tribe will be with us on the stage. But before that happens, I have refreshment is being served. So kindly be seated. Do not go out of the hall. If you go out of the hall, you won't get refreshment. Yeah. So okay, be seated. We'll wait for the next session. But before that, just while this is happening, I have some few questions or general knowledge that will be doing it. Okay, so Brother Rocky, when during his session, he mentioned some names of anthropologists who wrote about the Nagas. Does anybody know any of the anthropologists who wrote about the Nagas? Not just about the Tangkhus, but the Nagas in general. Anybody here? Besides Somingam? Oh, Leachon. T.C. Hodgson, yes. Do you want a book? Okay, we'll give to the, T.C. Hodgson. T.C. Hodgson, long name is Thomas Callan Hodgson. He wrote about, I think he wrote about the Tangkhus also, the Naga tribes of Manipur. So he doesn't have a book, the Tangkhus itself. He didn't write about the Tangkhus. Huh? But anthropologists, I'm saying, outsiders, yeah. So he didn't write solely on the Tangkhus, but he wrote about a lot of Naga tribes. Okay, so there's a book called The Naga Tribes of Manipur by T.C. Hodgson. If you want to know what he wrote about the tangkhul's. It's available in a lot of bookstores. T.C. Hodgson, The Naga Tribes of Manipur. Any other anthropologist you know who has written about the Nagas? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. Yes? Julian Jacobs. Yes, correct. Oh, yes. Huh? Yes, J.H. Hutton. Yes. Wonderful. Amazing. Last actually. Nanik Milo. Yeah, last question. Yeah, middle. Our dear, lovely little girl said, she said Julian Jacobs, and she said, yes, J.H. Hutton. Yes, J.H. Hutton. And there's another one. We had a session with Subitaba and Hermione Culling yesterday. They are here and they are there to sign books for you all. If you want to get your books signed by them, their books, their novels and short story books, get it signed. They are here. Jim's book also. Yes, Amay Jim, are you here? Amay Jim is not here yet, but Amay Jim's book is also here. Both the books, I think, Martin, are both the books here? Homecoming as well as, yeah. Both books of Amay Jim Umramiao are also here. So you can get them personally signed from Amay Jim when he comes into the hall. Subitaba is here, Hermione is here if you want books signed. J.H. Hutton, he wrote some of these books, the Angami Nagas, the Lotha Nagas, the Sema Nagas, and caste in India, and he published his diary that he took while he was on tour in the Naga hills. So that is titled Diaries of Two Tours in the Naga hills. So these were written by J.H. Hutton. There's another one that Brother Rocky mentioned, Christoph von Führer Heimendorf. He also wrote the famous The Naked Nagas and the Konyak Nagas. These are some books that are essential when you go on to study Northeast India later on. These are essential books that you will have to read to understand about how outsiders have written about the Nagas. So this will be helpful if you are interested in research and generally interested in what other people have written about us. Yes. Session hopok maman zeta maman faisa say chena seed kui milo we saka just me pam maman lega seed kui maman lega Tangkhul we first published he published a poet our poem he woman Shnau first poet chila poetry kagabi chala go with me Shnau ka ai ara awi arung abing na sang sala ba hili our poetry we aming akahi, our poem we aming akahi. Tui sari yana kapi lahani. Yes. Achon hangai sanam laragui. I think her granddaughters, grandchildren might be here also. She was a pioneer in educating women. She was a pioneer in educating a lot of Tangkhul women. I think she had a mission lazang, education lazang laga. She was a poet herself. She was one of the first girls to be educated, and she used that to educate a lot of other girls, to influence and to encourage other people to be educated. Our poetry he ila kachunga mapapirang ka akapapi sanam laragui. I thought in a kapaningi Tangkhul now he mere now mang na lasem kapijila mo the paning side in a research kasadamli like Tangkhul maramli like kapadamli Tangkhul mere now be mang we like samang jidala our kanresha is our lyric MK Shimre we lyric Tilui Kham we lyric atum tata hun we like Tangkhui Khare being here mere now mang sala the paning side ka ayi sanam laragui we boy ma khaji pa khui laga eating pak chung kha samangai jena just to encourage people who've come here to write poems, to write what we think thada kapik shokhi tagar sai itum na sanam laragui we ayi sanam laragui we poetry na itum ana ga da chungchu sa do chwe atamli ana ki paning sa do ana leida khlei Tangkhul wi ngashan hi li ga da muchuk sa do khada paning sa do ji hi theigu kui sambangai jena ji or ji ta ka mai na ithumna are dam hi ithumna Tangkhul wi maramli ina yu wi ning chu kai na ina ka pani ka bi shokhi now da niya khana ra pa la ko chwe atamli ji tharak salamo or ana china da paning salamo chwe atamwi mi china sa da paning salamo kaji hi theikhui thawai ne chiwangai na ithum khatana la last time la short stories la kharchan hi hada kapi se ji hi computer ma lega la ki kham tham ne ithum diary li kapi laga kapi se ji hi sada encourage sangai ji ne achon chi athang ini ayali samphang ne kha ana ilim thein ne kha ina ali theye awi lyric we ada lyric kapi khai awi research articles pinji in a research student na ka sali ana kapi khai ji iwi wang kuchong khong chon ne ji wangai na hada meeting ngai man da hada ning shi hada phongshok la chon chui ri da hada. I just want to personally thank you for having written the articles that you have written. It helped me with my research, and I recently read some of your poems from the Red Rhododendron songs compilation of English poetry, Tangkhul English poems, English poems by Tangkhul now. Chili, I resonated with your anger. Yeah, I resonated with your anguish when you wrote about patriarchy. It was very subtle, but also very explicit. Yeah, I could resonate, I could relate to it. I think, yeah, it will be now. Zangdale Jena Natuna Chon Chubi poems Ji Parker Natuna Chankat Nayang Gajibahi Tada Hang Kui Pening Kui Samang the Baye Jena Natula our poems Ji Pang Samai. The book is a bit costly. The poetry book is a bit costly, but it is running on discount. Rajwi bookstore Jilila Yor Mitale Jibi Lai Pajia. Collection of poems Paji or Mitleye. Lum Shaiza we poems the Zangale Chile, yes, yeah. Msangna. Zangai. Oh, I will Zangai Chile. You will son up in poems travel Zangai, Jader Hane Hada. Zangai, Lum will a Zangai, Achonchu will a Zangai, Liachon will a Zangai. It is now every daily labor the Temri John with the Zangai. I was Swiss with the Zangai. Ray the way na I was last time he could own copyright. Jane I would like exam queen editor by Jina Ame Karimbum Jina Chipping Jik English in a copy show Kai last time, Thompson on a copy show Kai last time Minja had a keep on make trade and puzzle like exam queen like shut up in a ricochet. Suddenly, Jina Jibaji la Kayang Milo, Kirasamilo, Jihi, Hangai performance Yara Rabayona.